Hello everybody, Megazord X here, back at it again to give you another very exciting review for none other than the latest installment within the MCU series, that being Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. And man, oh man, this was a movie, this was a spectacle, this was like a very rich movie. It was like rich as like a fine wine, just a lot of character, just a lot of oh shoot, just a lot of character, there's a lot of culture thrown up in there. And I was like, you know what? I was like, they were hitting on every single stride in this movie. I could just tell that, Black Widow was just a nice little start to phase four, though. But the real one that might have a lot of meat and potatoes in terms of the real push forward for phase four, it was this movie right here. And it did not fail to disappoint. Oh gosh, man. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and break it down for y'all, talk about the plot, my overall thoughts on it and everything else in between for this one movie right here though. And goodness, there's so much stuff to go through, talk about, and discuss. But before I jump into the plot itself, I just want to kind of give my little experience with the movie itself, because I think, to be honest, this might be the first movie that actually brought me back to the theaters since the whole COVID pandemic has started. Because, with Black Widow, that was one that was on Disney Plus, so I really had no reason to go to the theaters until now. And my theater experience was pretty nice. It was nice to be able to kind of sit around with everybody, and when there was moments of comedy, people were able to laugh. We're all kind of able to enjoy it together. Them sad moments, and some little even happy, like them kind of moments, like there's one little creature up in there that I'll talk about a little later in the review, where it sort of kind of made people like, oh man, they just had a little personal attachment to it though. But I'll get into that when I get a little further into the review though. But overall, the movie theater experience was great. Just being able to watch it with other MCU fans in general, and being able to see it up on the big screen as well. So I was like, okay, you know what? I'm like, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. It's just nice to finally be back. We are back, and better than ever to start off this phase four, at least really strong right off the gate after Black Widow though. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff to go through and talk about and discuss within this one movie. So let's go ahead and get up into it though. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and dive straight up into this movie review for none other than Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Okay, so to start things off at the very beginning of the movie, you know what? This actually kind of caught me off and threw me off by a loop. And the reason why I say that is because we had no other movie in the MCU so far, phase one, phase two, phase three, and now even into phase four, where we just started off the movie with a bunch of subtitles like this. And I was like, wait a minute, this is interesting, because the culture is really flowing through within this one movie. Just the matter of fact that they were speaking their native languages, and we had to watch the subtitles. And I know for people over there in Asia, and specifically, China and stuff, that were able to watch this movie and not have to actually watch it with subtitles, I know for them, that probably felt really good for them. And I was like, okay, that just kind of set the tone for what this movie was and what it was going to represent in terms of the culture they're trying to go for with this new superhero, that being Shang-Chi. But anyway, we start off at the very beginning of the movie, and we get to see this crazy dude with 10 crazy sort of kind of rings. This was way back. I mean, way back in years, several, basically 1,000 years ago. And this dude was rocking these 10 rings. And we're talking about almost like some pseudo Mulan kind of related stuff. Like, we're talking about empires ago, where this dude was a threat and knocking down empires left and right. Like, he was like literally almost a conqueror of the world. And I am talking about Winru. Winru was his real official name. He went by several different names throughout all of the years throughout his life. but Winru is his original name though. So I was like, oh, okay. So we're gonna go ahead and start things off like that though. But anyway, he was kind of going around from area to area, just trying to go through and conquer stuff left and right though. But there was one moment where he actually met his soon-to-be wife, and that being Lee, and he found her in some kind of offbeat area. Like, there's all different, like a lot of bamboo shoots and stuff, just kind of forestry stuff. It's kind of a isolated area, and this woman was the only one that was able to actually defeat this man right here. And I'm like, okay, all right, I can't believe that she was the one that actually managed to actually reign that man. This dude was rocking, kicking for almost 1,000 years, and she was the only one that was sort of able to beat him. And the interesting thing about her fighting style is she had martial arts just like the other dude, but she was rocking a little bit of magic, like martial arts mixed in with a little bit of magic. I mean, now we're starting to kind of kick with some little things. I was like, oh, all right, all righty then. But essentially, through their fight or whatever, though, it almost kind of looked like a dance, sort of kind of like it was sort of kind of elegant in that regard, though. But she had all of that going for her, so I was like, okay, that's really nice right there, though. And eventually, she became his future wife, and that was pretty much it. And it was just sort of kind of explaining the first, I want to say maybe 15, 20 minutes. Was it really 15? My goodness. Somewhere between 10 and 15 minutes of the movie. It was basically explaining the story between Winru and Lee and the life they would. And that basically, they gave birth to two children. That being one being Shang-Chi himself, and the other one being Zai Ling. So yeah, so those two were their kids. And that was basically all the stuff that was set up prior to where we're at in the current day. And now we get to wake up and we get to see Shang-Chi wakes up, kind of doing them push-ups like that. I really did love the music that was sort of kind of rocking on during the early part. I mean, the OST in this movie was very fun. Like, I don't know, I just had my head bopping during some of the moments. So I was like, okay, I see y'all. I see y'all. But anyway, though, we get to figure out that Shang-Chi was actually a ballet one of them people that kind of just valeted all of their. Hold on, let me get back to where I was. But essentially, he was one of those people that basically valet cars, and I was like, oh, okay. So he wasn't doing anything too crazy though. But I mean, but that's what he was essentially doing though. And with that, I'm like, okay, all right. So he was going through here and valeting cars, and I'm like, okay, so wasn't kind of living up to the potential of like what you would think what a martial arts person would actually do within his actual lifespan or whatever though. And they were sort of kind of called out by their friends saying, hey, you could be doing a whole lot, or especially their family, you could be doing a whole lot more with your lives. Like, why in the world are y'all just kind of chilling out over here? Like, one of y'all got like a high degree in something else though, and then Shang-Chi over here speaking 4 different languages though, so he had a lot going for him, but he really didn't do too much with it though. And these two were really just like peas in a pod. Like, you really couldn't separate them. Like, they were the best of best friends. Like, nothing really romantically going on between these two, but it's like a childhood friend that you just basically kept as a childhood friend. And that was a little nice, little interesting touch right there, though. And his friend her name was Katie, and Katie had some comedy going for her for the whole entire time. I think she's kind of up there with Wu, with Doctor Strange, and his sidekick Wu, as well as I would say almost up there with Scott's partner within Ant-Man. I think she has some stuff going for her within the comedy department, so I really did kind of like that as well though. But we get to the first sequence of fight scenes where essentially they were minding their own business, they were sitting on the bus or whatever though, and this dude, the quote Katie, had a machete for an arm, literally comes up in there with a whole crew of other people, and they were after this dude's pendant, and he was like, what the heck? So he literally got to fight him off. And the fighting sequences in this movie, and especially in this one scene in particular, was top tier level. Like, it didn't seem like some of the other stuff that we've seen in other movies where it's like, okay, the typical kind of action, like it was with the mixed martial arts sort of kind of style with their fighting, that I don't know, I was just digging it for like the good and length of this whole entire film though. like it was crazy. Like he was jumping, swinging around and stuff, swinging around poles, jumping out of the bus, moving up in there, telling Katie to drive this whole entire time. And when I give this signal, I'm basically gonna cut the. I mean, we're gonna swing this train hard left or right, and then be able to sever the train from the back part. This dude was doing it all. I was like, oh shoot, though. Like, and for all of y'all that might not be too familiar with Shang-Chi, like he doesn't have any super kind of crazy superpowers or anything. Not nothing like a Hulk or nothing like a Scarlet Witch or nothing like that. No, he was just trained with some really strong martial arts from his father, which I'll go ahead and talk about a little further on in the review. And basically was trained basically in every single way that you can use a weapon, nunchucks, knives, your nunchucks, knives. Shoot, you gave him a staff. I mean, he literally could almost use any kind of weapon that you basically laid in his hands. But his preferred method was just nothing but his fists and his feet. Like, just straight to the core, just traditional martial arts. That was his bread and butter. Bread and butter, should I say? But anyway, though, you got to see this dude going ham and stuff, and that dude with the machete for arm, man, like what the freak, man, like I don't know how you lost your arm, man, but I don't know what made you decide to put the machete up in there either, though, like that's just crazy, man. But anyway, though, after all of this was done, Katie was freaked out, like what the heck is going on, and she really wanted a good, solid explanation of everything that was going on, like why in the world is this hitman or this group after you, and what do they really want? And he basically had to break it down and say, hey, you know what? I have a sister. And she's like, what? You got a sister? You didn't even tell me? I was like, all right, pack your bags up. I'm going on the plane with you, though. Because Shang-Chi knew that, hey, it was, he was most likely those group of people were going to go after their sister next to get the other pendant, though. So that's basically where the plot sort of kind of starts off at. And then we get to see them kind of go all halfway across the world to try to find their sister, who's running an underground street club, where they're basically like doing ring fights, people betting and all of this stuff. Like, I can't believe his sister set all of that up. It's kind of crazy when you sit down and think about it, though. But anyway, though, I do have to point this out in this one little scene right here. And this can sort of kind of go on to not necessarily in credit scenes, but the future of what this could set up for the MCU, though. But you get to see Wu fighting over there in the distance against a sort of kind of beast that sort of kind of looks familiar way back when. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'll scratch my head while I was watching that movie. I was like, I thought I saw this dude before. And yes, it was none other than Abomination. And Abomination was like the sort of kind of main antagonist of the Incredible Hulk way back second movie in the MCU. I was like, what the freak, they brought this man back? So yes, that is a sort of kind of little tease that yes, there are setting things up for what could be a She-Hulk, for what would be She-Hulk, one of the other Disney Plus series later on down the road, though. But that's just a little bit of an Easter egg, or just a little bit of a heads up that they're sort of kind of trying to get them, be a little bit irrelevant again by the time we get introduced to the She-Hulk and everything else they're going to try to bring in with other characters and stuff like that. So I did have to point that out here real quick, though. But anyway, moving on beyond that fight, though, we have Shang-Chi over here, and he had to fight his sister, and he was trying to talk to her out about all of that kind of crazy stuff, though, but she wasn't putting up for it, especially after the fact that this boy over here, or this man, whatever you want to say, basically left his sister in the time of need because their father sent him on a mission to go go kill or assassinate this one person, but he never came back, and she was expecting him to come back, hence she had to formulate this whole entire ring because she was like, you know what, my brother ain't gonna be here for me. I gotta do things on my own. So I don't know how that led to her creating a whole entire street club like this, though. But I'm like, oh, okay, all right, I see how it is, but okay, whatever, though. So all right, so yeah, so we got to see all of that play out, though, and eventually it led to the whole group. They basically tracked them there. So I mean, like, I don't know what good was the heads up whenever they brought everybody else back over here, though. So I don't know. Good going, Katie. Good going, Katie. But anyway, they were after her pendant. We got to see another crazy little sick fight scene over here. on the outskirts of the building where they basically did like some, construction work, with all of the stuff that's built up on the side of the building. And that part right there was pretty sick right there. Just seeing Shang-Chi just flipping around and stuff. And we even got to see his sister tag team it up while they're trying to get Katie across the way because they were trying to get on the elevators to get out of here though. So man, that was just some crazy sick fight scenes right there though. But everything didn't go out to the way they wanted it to because ultimately they got themselves captured and their father finally showed up though. But he had a pretty good decent fight with this masked warrior over here though. Like he was throwing down for the better part of that fight though. But eventually when his father showed up with them 10 rings, that was that moment where it's like, you better settle down, sucker, because daddy's back and I'm about to put all y'all butts in line kind of mess. So you better follow behind me or you about to get whipped. Essentially is what he was laying out and dishing out right there though. But basically he says, you know what, I finally got y'all two back. It's time to go back home. And we get to see them get on the helicopter and they get taken back to their organization known as the 10 Rings, which that's what their father sort of kind of set up for all of these years that he's been alive. He's been running this organization and he's been, affecting critical parts in history throughout his thousands of years that he's been living though. And we get to see them come off the plane and stuff, and we get to see all of them just kind of looking at the organization that their father brought up. Now, a quick little history lesson, might I add. I'm trying to figure out where's the best point to stick this at, but I'm going to go ahead and stick it here, though. The 10 Rings is an organization that the MCU had mentioned this before the movie has came out though, but the 10 Rings were the original people that actually managed to capture Iron Man way back in Iron Man 1, and hence they were using some of his technologies to help, improve their organization and all of that kind of stuff though, because they basically forced Tony to build weapons for them though. That's a little nod and a little bit of an Easter egg right there. And there's another little Iron Man reference that I will point out a little later on once we talk about the introduction of another character though. But anyway, so we get to see Shang-Chi back to his training ground, should I say, where he did a lot of training while he was a youth. And his father, man, he literally beat that boy down to his core. Literally, like, having his arms sticked out, having them beat up on him, though, and trying to build his endurance, his strength. And he literally had to punch at this pillar, just chipping it away time after time after time. And, and we just got to see that bit of history of him and how he had to be trained and how he had to be brought up. Because he literally said, and also, he literally said this to all of his people within his 10 Rings organization, that yes, Winru said, you couldn't even kill my son even if you were to try. Hence, they really were trying right before they captured Shang-Chi, before they brought him back over here to home, but none of them were successful in terms of killing him though. Like that man had skills for days, man, skills for days though. But anyway, and then once they were done training him, that's when his father ideally was basically sending him out on a mission, because essentially his mother was killed by some people that were sort of kind of associated back in his back within Runru's old days, where he was associated with some other people. When you go around killing a whole bunch of other people, conquering other nations and stuff, you're bound to make enemies somewhere. And they literally all came over to his house one day, obviously whenever he wasn't around, and basically took their mother away from them though. So then basically that's the mission that Winru sent his son out to do, and he just never came back because he never had it within him to basically go out and kill somebody like that though. So that was a little bit of the back history on that though. But essentially his father was like, hey, you know what? She's actually still alive and she's back within her home village, which right there is kind of a red flag. Like, we already know that the original mother is dead. Why in the world is this dude fixated on this? But, we found out the reason about it a little later on in the movie, though. And it was at this moment where Winru figured out that, yes, there was a sort of kind of map displayed in all the water, which that water effect was actually really nice and really interesting in itself though. But anyway, that little water maze basically revealed up a whole entire forest where the hidden nation, I believe the name was Ta Lo, where their mother was essentially living at before she met their father, and thus she basically gave up everything she had, and he gave up the 10 Rings himself to basically kind of live out this life with her family before ultimately she was taken away, and then he kind of went back to using the 10 rings and whatnot though. So anyway though, he basically said, "Hey, join me and lead the charge, and we'll have them release your mother. And if they don't, we'll burn the village to the ground." And that did not sit well with Shang-Chi and the rest of them, though. And honestly, he was like, "Oh, okay." I was like, "All right, you know what? I'm not putting up with this or anything like that anymore." Which then causes Winru to force his hand and say, "You know what? We're going to go ahead and capture you, and we're going to lock you up, and you're eventually going to come around once I bring your mother home." So basically lock them up in a prison down low. Now this is where we meet a very interesting character that we have not seen in quite some time. I mean way back within phase 2 of the MCU, because yes, Trevor actually managed to make a return, the dude on the left side of the screen. And some of y'all might be thinking, wait, who's this Trevor dude again? Actually, he was the dude that was introduced way back in Iron Man 3, known as the Mandarin, because he was basically that dude that sort of kind of was given a face to the real antagonist of Iron Man 3, saying, "Hey, you know what, we might use this terrorist group, we're gonna basically use your face as like propaganda, just to kind of voice it out to everybody, say, hey, you know what, we mean business," or whatever though. That's that same actor that was hired way back when in Iron Man 3. And because he was imposing as the Mandarin, even though the real dude was Winru, Shang-Chi's father. That's that's why he was locked up down there in that prison, because he did not like all that stuff, and thus at some point he was going to kill that man. I'm surprised he hadn't done it yet, because it sort of kind of ruined his reputation though. But I mean, hey, that is what it is though. But that dude was not there by himself, because he had one of these crazy little magical beasts known as Morris. That was his name. And surprisingly enough, this thing did not have a face. I don't know why. But regardless, that thing was sort of kind of adorable. And the people I watched that movie with in the audience, they were like, oh, like they sort of kind of really sympathized for that thing. And I was like, golly, for the thing to not have a face, it still looked, pretty nice, like cute little pet or whatever though. So it was interesting to kind of see that kind of play out though. But I can't believe they brought Trevor back in this way. And that was another Iron Man reference that they made. So they had some Iron Man 1 references here, and it had some Iron Man 3 references, and we already saw the Doctor Strange and a little bit of the Incredible Hulk. So, I mean, those are the movies you sort of kind of have to watch in order to kind of get those teases and those little bits of information so far within the movie that was showcased. So anyway, so once we figured out about that, they try to break out of there. They hop into one of their cars, and they storm up out of there though. So they was like, oh, okay. And they finally actually managed to make their way over there to Ta Lo, where they actually managed to meet their aunt for the first time. And this right here was like a jaw-dropping moment. And I don't have images here up on the screen because, I mean, getting images from the movie is kind of limited as it is already though. But it is a surprise whenever y'all actually get to actually watch the movie yourself, or if you already watched it, you already know what I'm talking about. Because the heavy culture that was showcased off in those first few moments when they walked into Ta Lo was just super, super rich. Like, you got to see these magical creatures, you got to see these foxes with several different tails. I want to say like 9 tails, like the Pokemon 9 tails. And then you got to see a lot of different Morrises out there. This cute little fuzzy little beast without a face. And then you even get to see some dragon-like creatures, quadrupeds, walking around like that. And I was like, dang, I was not expecting dragons to be up in the movie, because in all the promotional material leading up to Shang-Chi and the Legend of 10 Rings, I don't think I saw any dragons on anything. I did see it after the movie dropped. Or maybe they did, and I was sort of kind of like blocking and putting some sensors up because I didn't want to get spoiled on the movie too much though. But that culture was super rich, and the people there, I just love every little bit of it though. But anyway, they got to meet their aunt, and their aunt sort of kind of helped teach Shang-Chi the fighting style that basically his mother was able to use in order to defeat Winru. And we just got to see all the different kind of cultures and stuff, and they're basically kind of preparing for war, because essentially the reason that Winru was being brought to this place, or sort of kind of attracted to this place, was these soul suckers that are basically in a whole nother dimension, locked behind a gate that resides within Ta Lo. It was sort of kind of using its sort of kind of like telepathy, sort of kind of like trickery, kind of playing thoughts with his head, acting like oh, I hear my wife's voice, and she's trying to draw me towards this one place. That's how them soul suckers was trying to, bring him there because they knew that the power of the 10 rings could be able to set them free. And in times past, those soul suckers went from like one universe to another realm, to another, just kind of causing chaos, sucking souls, getting stronger, and then thus able to wipe out more whatever kind of life that existed within that one realm or that one universe, though. So anyway, they were basically tasked, the people of Ta Lo, to be able to block and seal that entrance and make sure nobody goes through and actually frees that stuff. Because many people had come before Winru has, stepped through into Ta Lo, but all of them had failed so far. So their aunt was like, nope, shoot, not even my brother-in-law is gonna come up in here and try to release these soul suckers out onto the world or whatever though. So they're basically preparing for war and stuff. You even got to see some good character moments with Katie and how for a lot of part of her life she wasn't really kind of like trained to take aim at life or do anything in life that sort of kind of had like a lot of meaning to it. And we got to see a little bit of this growth with her kind of shooting a bow and arrow and kind of learning the way. Learned it pretty quick, might I argue, because I think she learned it a lot quicker than probably anybody else probably would have been able to within that quick period of time, because she did play a critical moment very late within the movie though. But yeah, so they're basically preparing for war, and then their father finally arrived, and he was bringing chaos with him. He brought all of these people with him, thanks to one time out of the year where the path through the little forest that brings it to Ta Lo will open up, where you're able to easily walk through instead of trying to, make your way and speeding through a car like how Shang-Chi and the rest of the crew have to. Thanks to Trevor interpret or ooh, instead of thanks for Trevor for being able to interpret what Morris is saying to kind of weave through the forest and whatnot though, and they were able to kind of make their way through it though. But outside of that, nobody else would have really been able to make it though. But anyway, he brought his army with him, and they were duking it out, and then he was just making those punches up against that wall and letting more of them soul suckers come out. And these soul suckers were savage. Don't have any images here on the screen though, but they were savage down to the core, just sucking up souls, getting stronger though. And there was a bigger beast laying up inside of there though. But unfortunately, Winru did so much damage to the door where it was able to bust its way through, and this thing looked absolutely hideous and disgusting. And I was like, what the heck? I didn't even know how in the world they were going to beat that dude or beat that creature, because I mean it looked all powerful. It didn't look like anybody else can really fly. I mean, with the exception of Shang-Chi, he can kind of do some blasts off against the ground and kind of like fly up in the air and kind of do some somersaults and kind of crazy little stuff like that though. But you wouldn't think that'll be enough to kind of take down that beast. But then they threw that curveball at me, and I was like, what the freak? Because a big old long looking old dragon came up out of the water. I was like, you know what? I'm a dragon lover. So that moment really did spoke to me right there. That moment spoke to me real hard. I was like, oh shoot, they got legit dragons up in this mess. I mean, they got all these crazy little magical beasts, because we're sort of kind of entering the magical realm a little bit though, thanks to the introduction of Doctor Strange, and a little bit more within this series right here, within this movie right here, should I say. And dang, that thing was tight. That thing was tight. Man, just seeing Shang-Chi just riding up on that dragon like that, I was like, dang. I was like, okay, I see you, man. I see you. Like, just look at that dragon. Just look at that dragon right there. I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, yes, they definitely went there. And I was like, oh, I was like, okay, I really do like what's going on right here, though. But anyway, it was thanks to the dragon where they're able to fend off a lot of the soul suckers. And then anything else that kind of came through after, they went past the dragon, it was thanks to the technology that the Ta Lo people had, where they're able to sort of kind of defend themselves off. They did lose some numbers throughout this battle though, but they didn't lose everybody though. But they did lose a good chunk of people though. But anyway, it was kind of thanks up to him and stuff. And there was that one moment at this movie where that big old soul sucker was literally sucking the life out of the dragon. And honestly, if you would have got the soul out of the dragon, that would have been the end game. There would have been nothing else they could have done to stop that thing. It would have been too powerful. But it was at that moment where Katie shot her arrow up in the air, and dang, she was a sharp shooter, might I add you. Shot that thing up in the neck after she lost the master. The master was carried off by a soul sucker himself. And that gave him just enough time for the dragon to kind of break free and whatnot though. And then it was kind of up to Shang-Chi as well as his sister Xialing to be able to kind of take down this thing. And the dragon was basically holding it up, using some kind of like water vortex to keep it in place. And then you got to see Shang-Chi jump over the top, use his 10 rings, and annihilate that sucker into oblivion, though. I was like, oh, shoot. I was like, man, that man was tight. I just really like how he was like fight. He basically had to sacrifice himself to sort of kind of fend off against the Soul Sucker beforehand in order to give him a little bit of hope, give him the 10 rings, and say, hey, look, I did something bad. I must atone. I'm going to keep you alive, but I know you have the strength within you to take him out himself, though. Because I knew his father was going to die in some way, shape, or form, because that's how it plays out sort of kind of in the comics. I just didn't know exactly how they were going to do it within the MCU, because we always know the MCU does things a little bit differently, though. But yeah, so it was interesting to kind of see that play out, though, and to see Shang-Chi this giving the what for, just jumping over there and just blasting all those rings up on him, though. I was like, dang, this is sick. Like, them 10 rings ain't no joke, man. Those things ain't no joke. But that's basically the peak climax of the movie right there, and that's pretty much all there was to it for the most part, though. They basically had some sort of kind of like cleanup, you know, kind of the afterthought, and, you know, like, they were back at home, you know, sort of kind of explaining, at least with Shang-Chi as well as Katie, about this other couple that they kind of were sitting up in front of him, just kind of casually talking like they were early in the movie, and saying how basically there were superheroes that basically kind of saved the world and stuff like that, though. And they were trying to explain all these powers. You know, those two didn't believe him or whatever, though. And then you have Wu jump to a portal and was like, hey, you got the 10 rings with you? Oh, yeah, we need to talk. Come on. And then that's essentially where the movie ends for the most part, though. So without talking a little bit, you know, and that's basically it for the movie, though. I will talk about the end credit scenes in just a bit, though. But in terms of the standard core movie of itself, was a really tight, niche, rich like a fine wine kind of movie. Like, there was a lot of culture that came through there. I felt like Shang-Chi, with his movie, related to a whole bunch of Asians like that, in similar manner to how Black Panther was able to relate with a lot of different black people and African Americans. So I was like, okay, you know what? I really love that movie because the culture was really rich. The fight scenes were sick. I always do like myself some good martial arts within some movies like that, though. It just had everything going for it. And I really did like Shang-Chi as a character overall. He was pretty nice, pretty pure, down to earth, though, but he had the moves to back it up whenever somebody put something in danger, or when someone was in danger that he really cared about. He always had the beef behind him to back it up, though. He almost had the nerve, and he almost had the nerve and motivation to say, you know what, if my father is going to come in and try to kill and desolate this whole entire village, you know what, I would not be scared to go ahead and just end my father's life right there if it came down to it. So I was like, dang, this dude was motivated through all aspects. I was like, whole freaking shoot. So I was like, okay, you know what, I was like, dang, this dude has some motivation. He had the drive and everything, though. So overall, I definitely say this is a solid movie. I'll put it up there as like a 9 out of 10, or should I dare say a 10 out of 10, because man, this movie had a little bit of everything up in there, though. And if you hadn't watched this movie yet, and I'm surprised you're over here watching my review right now, shoot, you need to go ahead and watch it. And honestly, this movie was so good, really wanted to watch it again, but it's kind of sad how I don't have it on Disney Plus like Black Widow, where I can go back and watch it again, because there were some moments in there I would really like to go through and watch again because it was just that good. But anyway, though, that was pretty much it in terms of the movie, though. But now we got to talk about the spicy little bit of some end credit scenes right there, though. And let me go ahead and transition this over here real quick, though. So that's that one scene where we got to see right here where Wu was saying, hey, you got them 10 rings, come on and let's come on, follow me, we got some things to talk about and discuss right here, though. And essentially Wu was over here analyzing the 10 rings, and lo and behold, we get to see two other characters that we all know and love, that being Carol Danvers and that being Bruce Banner, you know, Hulk and Captain Marvel. Yeah, they actually managed to show up in these end credit scenes, sort of kind of using like the whatever it's called, where they're able to talk similar to how they were in Endgame, I think a little bit in Infinity War 2, where they're able to kind of talk and stuff, and then And Carol was over here like, you know what? It's not like any other alien tech I've seen around the universe though. And then the Hulk was like, well, you know what? This is also it's not made out of vibranium, you know, stuff made out of Captain America's shield or nothing like that though. And Wu was also using his magic to analyze it, and he wasn't picking up on this, or not too many things on it too. But he did notice that he was like, "How long did your father have these rings?" And he's like, "For 1,000 years." And he's like, "Well, these rings existed a lot, or these rings are older, a lot older than 1,000 rings. However, when you use those rings, it did send out a sort of kind of homing beacon. It's like sending out a distress call for something to come. We don't know what that is, but that's all the kind of information we're able to pull off of these rings right now." And basically, they low key recruited them after Carol was like, "All right, I gotta go and bounce. I gotta take care of this one little thing." Could be related to what could be within the Miss Marvel or the Marvels, should I say, later on. And that movie doesn't come out until like a couple years from now. And then the Hulk is over here. Is like, "Welcome to the circus." So this is the low key invitation that's saying, "Hey, welcome to the Avengers now," because you know, there's some crazy stuff going on. But looking at the Hulk real quick though, the one jarring thing that's the different thing is he's not no longer the smart Hulk. He's the regular Bruce Banner now. So he's not back in that Hulk form, which honestly everybody was pretty much thinking that was a permanent form of his. But now seeing him back as this, I wonder did he get some kind of assistance from Doctor Strange or Wu, because we did see with Doctor Strange Old Master that yes, she was able to actually knock out and separate the souls between the Hulk as well as Bruce Banner. So maybe this sort of kind of has some magical assistance from either Doctor Strange or Wu to be able to kind of put him back in his human form. I do not know, but it's kind of interesting. But he does still have that sling on his arm from him being able to from him using the snap at the end of Endgame. So the damage is still done to his arm, and he's still kind of feeling the repercussions of it though. But yeah, that is some interesting notes to point on it though. And outside of that, there's not too much else shown where it was able to showcase off Shang-Chi's sister on Xylene, and she basically took and was trying to clean up Winru's organization, and she had men and women training up in the organization. Now the key question is, does she make it a little more of a heroic sort of kind of organization that would sort of kind of help the Avengers within like a future movie way down the lines? Or does she turn into an organization much like her father's? That is yet to be seen. I have a feeling that, hoping that it's going to be the former rather than the latter, though. At least that's what I'm thinking. Something similar to her underground sports ring, but they're just naturally getting stronger there or whatever, though. And then she can just command her to do whatever she wants and feels. Like, she's not evil or nothing like that, though. So at least I'm thinking that's why it's going to lean closer to the former, though. But she's just running her own sort of kind of pseudo dojo over there or whatever you want to call it though. But that's basically it in terms of the second end credit scene though. So outside of that, the first one was the one that had most of the meat and potatoes up in it, and there's really nothing that we've seen within the MCU so far where they really kind of showcase off anything that what could be honing in on that homing beacon so far. So this one scene is going to have a lot more meat and potatoes behind it once we get a little further on within phase 4, and when we all look back at this movie, when we're going back and rewatching it, we're going to be like, oh, that was being sent to such and such. So yeah, so that's basically all I have to say on the end credit scenes though. But overall, I love this movie from start to finish, and I was like, man, this movie was kicking on every angle though, and I was like, man, I really loved every little bit of it with the culture aesthetic and the fight scenes and just the plot, and Shang-Chi was just rocking on every single level though. But yeah, I just loved it. I was glad to be back at the movie theaters, being able to witness this movie firsthand once again though. So I was like, yeah, you know what? Ooh, this movie was clicking on every bit, and I'm really looking, and I was really looking forward to this movie, and it did not disappoint. And the next movie that we have slated up will be none other than The Eternals, which drops out in November. And then shortly after that, we have Spider-Man No Way Home that drops out in December, though. So yeah, the movies are about to come back to back to back to back, and things are starting to pick up right now. And we also have Hawkeye that's going to be airing here soon within the next month or two. So yeah, a lot of good things to kind of look forward to for the future of the MCU, though. But this right here is a turning point in terms of the critical start point of Phase 4 right after Black Widow, though. So y'all gotta let me know down in the comment section down below what all that you think about this movie. If you already have seen the movie, y'all gotta let me know your thoughts down in the comment section down below. What all you think about it, your experience about it, how it felt to just actually be back at the movie theaters for once. Like, I know that was a little bit of a strange little twist right there, though. I mean, it sort of kind of felt surreal to me, though, but oh man, it was definitely worth it for this movie, though. But yeah, that's basically all I have to say on this one Marvel MCU review for Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. So if you really like this, movie review, make sure to go ahead and hit that like button. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button and that bell to stay up to date on all things Marvel related in terms of any of the other movies that are coming out, as well as the Disney Plus series that all tied together for the greater good of the MCU. So remember, y'all, until whatever video I make next, see y'all.